we do this out every year. A bit on my background, I've been in New Zealand for about a decade now, working as a water engineer, both in the private and public sector. So my expertise spans specifically hydraulic modeling, so predicting how water flows and municipal networks, rivers, and cities during flood events. So I'd like to speak first on the spending for water services management. I would like to see the council reduce spending as much as possible on this. I appreciate that you are in a difficult position with the regulatory agency, but in my view, this agency seems to be established to make water infrastructure unaffordable to deliver by local councils. This was advanced in tandem with the contentious Three Waters reform, probably because Three Waters reform is anticipated to be pushed back against with the new regulatory agency. They can force councils into a position of financial desperation further on down the line, to the point where in a few years' time we could be begging to hand over our water assets, when just recently we were pushing back against it. So I understand that you are in a difficult position to be able to continue to deliver and meet the metrics established by the regulatory agency, but I would ask that you push back against that as much as possible, delay the work until it's absolutely required, and just focus on core deliveries. As far as I can tell, this district hasn't had any issues with water quality since it's been delivering it. So you'd be doing a great job, and it'd be great to see you just continue delivering as you are. So that's my comments on water services. Roading, again, I would like to see the council not get further in debt. Ballooning debt out to close to $300 billion over 10 years is not affordable in my view. That's evil insolvency. So if it comes down to weight restrictions on bridges or returning some roads back to gravel, I'm perfectly content with that. And another comment I made was, I don't know how much of this is being delivered in-house by engineers or how much is being contracted out to consultants, but as I've touched on later in my submission, I don't know the history of whether there's been a study for an amalgamated council here in Southland with the other three councils. There seems to be merit to that in other regions of this size, like with Nelson Tasman and Marlborough District Council. So it would be good to see a case study to amalgamate and perhaps reduce costs, get better lending rates, and hopefully more democratic engagement across Southland. Let's see, other issues, glass recycling. If people want to feel better about themselves by sending their beer bottles out to China, I think they can make the effort to drop them off at the council recycling centers. I really don't see why this is a major issue. And I would appreciate it if we didn't spend any extra money on that. I also don't understand the value of the Manipur airport, but people with the ordinance want to maintain it. I think they should be doing that. The rest of the district subsidizing it. 14 seconds. Last thing I'm going to say.
There's another 5 minutes after that, but yeah, you can go into
just you want to. So my home is Far Island. I haven't been in touch with anybody at council about this. I don't really know the future plans for it, but it seems to that's just gonna be kind of sitting around to slowly decay. We're in for hard times ahead. I think we need more community infrastructure, for, you know, situations like emergency management. So I appreciate if there was capacity for that. Thanks.
Thank you. So yeah, well, I guess just I'll start off first, and thanks for coming down south, and thanks for only living here a year and coming in today and feeding into our process. It's great to see that level of engagement. Yeah, so big thank you from me for submission and coming in and talking. And you've obviously got a bit of experience in that water space as well. So in terms of the regulations that you've seen that we're having to face, do you have a preference on which one you sort of look at first in terms of the three water space?
I don't fully understand the regulations, so I couldn't tell you how it's acting at this point. I need to have a more thorough read. Yeah, do you have certain issues that are unachievable?
It's I could talk all day. Yeah, it's the wastewater is definitely the one that $300 million debt we talk about, that's like contributed to that over the years of those regulations. Yeah, I'll open up the floor for questions. Councillor Byers.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate the feedback. You've raised some concerns around the water infrastructure, the affordability of meeting these new regulations. Have you had some experience overseas where you've seen a similar process unfold?
Yeah, so I grew up in sort of the western New York, Pennsylvania area, commonly known as the Rust Belt, where, you know, manufacturing disappeared decades ago. A lot of those areas had to privatize their water networks because they just couldn't afford to maintain them. It's commonly a disaster when that happens. It's worse for everyone. That sort of things happened in plenty of countries in the last couple of decades, and some of the, you know, armed uprisings were an example of that 20 years ago. So I think we need to push back on privatization as much as possible, and it's probably supported.
What are some of the negative effects of this privatisation?
It removes local accountability, and that's the big thing that people are pushing back against with water reform. It has to be locally owned. There has to be accountability when services are failing to meet local expectations.
Are there any other questions from councillors?
Oh, not so much a question really, but the Mataron Hall, it's been rather embarrassing how long that process has taken. And it has to be a process that we've gone through with DOC and other parties, but it's coming to an end. You might be pleased to know.
Okay. Yeah, one thing to note with that, my rates in Outer Sea were downfall, and that's on the other side of the river. So if there were, you know, a flood event, I'm sort of on an island a little bit. Something, you know.
Councillor Byers.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Josh. Just while you're here and you've got some experience in this area, you mentioned amalgamation. With regards to water infrastructure, do you see benefits of amalgamation for these councils in the south? Is there some way that could benefit the councils in achieving their water infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, Mr. McIntosh might be able to offer more expertise on that, but my understanding is that the Fargo City Council aims to deliver most of their design in-house. They try to avoid using consultants when possible, and I see that just sort of expanding across Southland. There would be better affordability to do that in-house instead of having to spend. I mean, the average water consultant's probably around $200 an hour for design work. So that can be done in-house much more affordably. Same goes with sort of the climate change spending that the council's doing. Consultants are making a lot of money on that. Environment Southland is spending a lot of money on that as well. So if there was sort of combined effort to address that, in-house, I think that we could get not only more affordable results, but, results that better reflect the use and values of people Southland. A lot of these consultants that are advising on these issues, the values best.
Thank you. And I'll just a quick closing question from me. In terms of the LTP process and the submission, did you find it quite useful, the amount of information that you had to submit on? Did you find that?
Yeah, like this packet's good. It's a lot better than what Environment Southland's put out 2 months ago. I also submitted on their LTP. I haven't read through the 400-page document, but I think was the previous LTP. And yeah, I haven't looked through some of the detailed figures on spending those costs, but yeah, the transfer seems to be a lot better than what I've seen on Southland, so cheaper.
Well, just thank you once again for coming along and sharing with us. It's we'll look forward to seeing you more in the future.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, we have our next speaker coming in online from overseas.
Can you see Sarah on top of them?
Yeah, I just want to see if we can get her on the screen. Can't see Sarah.
Making sure that she's got a question.
Yeah, that's what Stevie's been over before. So
Oh, yeah,
that's
that's right. And like them pointing out.
What are the regions?
I'm still here. I'll put something up on chat if I want to ask a question.
Related to the number of.
If for whatever reason, Sarah, you've been waiting for a long time, just make a noise, just in case I do miss you. Don't be afraid to chat.
Yeah, no, I'll put something up on chat if you miss me.
Thank
It's all good. I haven't had any questions so far.
So those are not the one that came through from you.
Yeah.
Missing, is he?
We're back early.
He'll be on island time to.
So what's that one, mate?
Instructor.
Yes.
I'm in the red zone too, when you like the old.
He's the way it's-
Probably holding a hole in his boat.
And there's messaging. Pretty spot on.
We are still live streaming too. Yeah.
Did she submit?
No, sexy.
Okay, Peter, aware of that, are they?
What's she?
Basically
She's outside of it.
Oh, it's right. So it's kind of.
yes,
We're live streaming.
always have been.
Sorry.
I don't-
Sorry, just doing it.
The repairs and maintenance system and fixing of the sub, as the slumps. And the reseal of course.
Yeah, so why are you fixing slums in your resale? Why don't you do all at one time?
No, because you've got to fix the slumps and reseal. But then it's 4 months later.
Yes.
What do I say?
Setting up railway qualified.
Maybe, because it says not business as to you. Regional Infrastructure Fund, that change Jones is.
Okay, we're back online. We're just waiting on our mechanics to just pay the card, and we'll have Mr. Connor coming in anytime now. Can you hear us, Aaron?
Yep, he says. It's to unmute. Video. Oh, you both can't unmute at the same time.
Still on restriction.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. They won't stop us.
One's a line between here and Stuart.
They tried to stop it. They used to.
Yeah.
We can't manually unmute them from our side.
You can, oh, they can function alone. Hello, I just, yeah. He can hear us, so he's aware that he's on mute.
Started this 5 minutes.
It'll take a piece of welding machinery into its phone in a few minutes. You'll see flames coming out of it.
Someone text him.
Yeah, I text them.
You must be having this message just on the more.
No, me neither. Yeah.
They're gonna be here a lot.
It might.
But can you hear us now, Squirt?
Might have to yell from the island.
I random and put them on speaker.
Yep, we'll do that.
Let's see how bad my phone goes.
These are problems we have on the island.
G'day.
Katie.
Would it be easier if I just put you on speakerphone and say if you to restore with the technology? Cool. I'll check you on speaker now. Fiona might be making, oh yeah, there's an external speaker. I'll plug it into my phone and it may work. Stand by for that. Cool. So just check them.
They start talking squirt.
Morning.
There you go. Okay, you are now in front of a live audience of about 15.
I can see you.
Oh, Matt's gone.
That's all I can do.
Lovely to see you.
I'd just like to speak on that submission of ours, or the community board. We done mainly on the electricity part charge. The reason we've included that and increased it is we feel that it is unfair on the rest of the consumers to be paying for lines that potentially can be used on other people on empty sections. Well, there's been some feedback that I've read. We don't feel it's justified in some of the excuses that have been put forward. So we would like to continue that, otherwise it will be a burden on the rest of the electricity users that will have to increase the price somewhere to make the shortfall. And there's plenty of examples of that and other part charges and things, for example, sewage and things around the place. So we'd like you to take that into consideration. And also, we support the Tianao Airport being a charge through district rates, while not a full charge. We worked it out that it doesn't seem to be a lot of money per year for anyone in particular. Was pretty much a point over a double gin. We figured out that it would be household for us in particular here, so that, well, we supported that. So Is there any questions?
Thanks, Greg. I'll open up the floor for any questions. Does it look like we've got, Councillor Duffy?
I'm not trying to argue, just putting forward a point. You mentioned the way sewage is treated, but my understanding is that people not connected to sewage pay a half charge, which is basically what is happening now, I suppose.
Yeah, they do pay a half charge like the council does on the power station. Originally we wanted it, we didn't actually want to charge on the other consumers that are already there, but that sort of slipped through the system and got included a while ago, which is, it's sort of at the current state of diesel and prices, it's evening the price out of on the low users, like the cribbies that hardly use any power. So until we get a more sustainable option on power, it is covering costs, making it a bit more fair for everyone, we think. So.
Thank you.
Doesn't look like there's any further questions, but yeah, just on behalf of council, I'd like to thank you and your community board for submitting along, and we'll take that feedback into account. So thanks very much for that, Squirt.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll try and get better technology next time.
With the way.
Have a great day on the island.
Okay, will do. Cheers.
Cheers.
Have fun.
Bye-bye. And our next submitter is coming through at 1 o'clock, so we will take a break for lunch, 15 minutes early. So I will move from the chair that we adjourn the meeting. Can I have a second over? Councillor Fraser, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? That is carried. We'll adjourn the meeting for lunch. Come back. Down the line? Yes. Cool, thank you. Welcome back, everybody. We'll think back into our second minutes, hearing our senators. Our first one for this afternoon is coming in online. And it is Bruce Beatonfield. And this is on page 340 of your agenda. Are we able to see the screen? Can you hear us at all, Ruth? Are you there, Ruth? Can you hear us at all?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. So we'll give you 5 minutes to do your presentation, and there'll be another 5 minutes for questions from the table. So just ready when you are.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so my name is Ruth Beddingfield. I'm a senior citizen. And I thank you all for allowing me to speak today. I do understand that councils around New Zealand are having a problem with finance, and it's extremely hard on everyone's pocket, especially since COVID lockdowns. There are people out of work, especially families with children, people struggling to make ends meet. Everyone is finding it very hard. Even if they don't own their own home, they will be impacted by rates rises and rents will go up. We find it difficult with just the pension. We think twice about going to the dentist, the doctors. And as my husband has Parkinson's, he has to go to the doctors for medication. We pay our rates, insurance, power, phone, weekly. This has to be done like this because we can't afford large sums of money. We allow ourselves coffee with friends twice a week. We do realise that we have to interact with other people. We need to save money for repairs for the car, rego, anything that needs repairing around the house. I have spoken to a lot of elderly in town who are in the same boat. Some live on their own. These people find it harder when they're on their own. If we can't pay our rates, there are two lots of that too, which is the environmental, Southland and council rates. both which are going up this year, possibly next year, and the year after, and the year after that. If a person does not pay their rates, it says on your website that it can be handed to a debt collector and force sales on mortgage-free homes to retrieve the rates. Then where do we go? We have to budget to survive. The New Zealand economy is in decline. What guarantee has council got in place for senior citizens that have own their own homes and can't pay their rates? We, all of us, I think, are finding it very difficult, but especially the senior citizens, those people that actually worked hard to keep the country going, and now we find it just difficult. That's it. It's quick, but I hope I got my message across.
Thank you for that, Ruth. I appreciate you taking the time to share those thoughts. It was a good submission. So before I open up the questions from the team, actually, I'll just ask you a question from the chair. Are you aware of the rates rebate? Sorry, excuse that bit. Are you aware of the rates rebate scheme from the government to help with the rates?
Yes, I do. And yes, I do to get them.
Cool. Thank you. Do you believe that should be a higher contribution?
I think especially a person with a supers card, maybe something could be added to that. I think it's very important that the senior citizens are looked after. I mean, I'm 74 and I'm sure that I know people in their 80s that are living on their own and they struggle. So I think it's really important that they are looked after, because we got the country going. We kept it going for the younger ones, and we want to keep it going. And I'm not happy about the possibility of me losing my home. I worked hard for it. We own it, but we don't have a lot of money sitting in the bank.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the floor? Councillor Duffy?
I'm just guessing that you're in a township with sewage and water. Would that be right?
Yes.
Are there any further questions? It doesn't look like there's any further questions, but yeah, just like to thank you once again, Ruth, for both your written and your oral submission. And yeah, we've definitely heard you today, so thank you very much.
No, thank you for hearing me. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you. Okay, so next up we have Mr. Chris Norgate. I believe we're not in the room. It was on page 54 of our agenda. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me. Steve?
Yep.
I live at Tuatapere. I believe a lot of you guys here are business owners or have stuff to do with businesses. I'm a beekeeper, truck driver out there, I run a business out there as well. What I'm saying is that I'd like to see more of the community involved. It's like we have downers to come and do our water test once a week, and you see they'll take an hour from Invercargill to get out there and an hour to get back, and it's 2 hours that we're paying for. And it could be one of our locals doing it, the lawns and all that. Yeah, I'd like to see the community to be used more. In our community, like you say, you've got glass happening here, recycling glass. It'd be good to see rugby teams or our local community sports teams or community like Lions, stuff like that, to have the opportunity to make the money out of it, to put money back into our community. As you know, Tuatapere's got Huntridge Track. I'd like to be able to see the airport being used with the Huntridge Track to be able to do that, and more tourism to come into these little communities. I agree with what you're saying about the airport. I think that's for the whole community, but the whole community should be able to use it as well. It goes both ways. What I'm saying is that the big contractors are coming in and the community's not getting anything out of it, and it's just sucking everything out of the communities. I was looking here, on the community board there, it's $9,000 to pull down a chimney. Like the guy I was talking about the council there before, he was saying it could be a bit more than that, could be other stuff involved, but there's still a lot of wasted money happening because of using these big contractors. I just want to see the community used more. With the bridges, I sort of think is that a lot of these rural bridges, we've got Fonterra trucks or milk tankers going over them, not necessarily Fonterra, and logging trucks going over them. I believe they need to pay a toll for the ones that are wrecking them. I reckon you can set a camera or some form of camera over them. When a truck goes over, then you send them a toll, because that's what's wrecking the car, or a light vehicle is not actually wrecking them because it's what they're designed for. That's what I've seen in the bridges, and some of them are in bad repair. Just trying to think what else is there. There's the airport, the glass, and what was the other one? Well, with recycling, I don't know if any has thought about it, but with the plastics, there's a machine that you can convert plastic into diesel. I don't know if anyone's thought about getting hold of the Richardson group, see if we could work a deal with them to take all the bailage wrap, the plastics and everything, and convert it back into fuel. Yeah, so that's a thought. That's just a thought there. Yeah, that's about it, really. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, appreciate you taking the time to come over today and to us as well.
Yeah.
Just an initial question from me before I hand over to the floor. In terms of the consultation process and the document that we sent out that you've got in front of you there, do you think it's like very happy with the process and being able to understand the information that we've put out?
I think it's like that last caller saying that it'd be nice not to see rates go up, because everybody's doing it hard. It's just not me. All businesses are doing it hard. Farmers are doing it hard. Everybody's doing it hard. And if we can keep rates down for the next 5 years, it would make a big difference to the communities and everything else. And we'll be able to start up after that, just to get a bit of a bang behind us.
So would you see a level of service drop to keep those rates down? And if so, what sort of service would you?
What I could see, if we got more of the community involved, I think our service would stay the same. It would be cheaper to get. It's like putting handrails around Urapuki. There's Mr. Steele, who's a local engineer at Tuatapere. He most probably could do them not $20,000, and there's a nursery out there who can supply the plants. If you got the community involved, it would be half the price. It would be a lot cheaper, because people take pride. People want to put their own little spin on it. They want to be involved. There's a lot more into it. It'd be a lot cheaper. And you haven't got these big contractors just sucking the money out of the community. That's what I see, and it's coming to a point I see that council's going to have to start running their own stuff, because it works out cheaper in private.
Councillor Menzies?
Thank you. Do you think the local community people who can undertake this work are aware of the opportunities for the work being available, or is a barrier actually in the application process itself?
Well, I've talked to one contractor who applied for the mowing lawns around Tuatapere, and he said that all the mowing contracts all went to Downers. They didn't go to any other contractors. And to see that, that's just gut wrenching. No, we're not allowed to use local people. It's just gone straight to one outfit.
Well, the question really was whether those other contractors did apply.
So no one applies for it. No one applies for it because they know it's just going to go to one big contractor.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And that's it. What's the point? We're not going to fight against the big people. And that's what it is. The big people come in and they offer a real cheap price to start off with, next the prices slowly go up.
So you think that's one of the key barriers for people to apply?
Yeah, and people don't know. And it's not advertised in our local magazines. Not everybody goes on the internet. I don't go on the internet very often. I don't look at, or I may see our Tuatapere Facebook page maybe once a week if I'm lucky. It's about putting it out there as well.
So in Tuatapere, for example, where would be a good place to put out that information that this?
The local Foursquare. Like we're doing up the railway station at the moment. Hopefully there'll be a new information centre, stuff like that. That'll be a good place to start. Yeah, it's good to see we've got a $300,000 grant to get that done. It's good to see that be happening. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the floor? There's been none. I'll thank you very much once again for coming along and for your submission and your thoughtful comments here as well. So thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Okay. Next up. We've got Dawn and Ray Wilkins, I believe. Ray's in the- Ray, did you want to, are you waiting on Sean?
Yeah, well.
Oh, yeah, no, because yeah, we'll just leave five all in.
Sorry, they're not making these one off. Oh, do they? And Sun does some good stuff for us. It's quite early. Yeah, in the west.
Oh, yeah, that's.
In their area. It's pretty disgraceful. Grass short.
Sean, here you?
Yeah.
It's Sarah. All right, so yeah, we'll roll on with you guys. There's 5 minutes to present and then another 5 minutes to question. So you can roll on a little bit to question time if you want, but yeah, you have 10 minutes in total, and yeah, just ready to work.
Thanks, Rob. Oh, good afternoon all, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to our submission. My name's Sean Wilkins from representing our Wilkins Farming, which is a family farming business in northern Southland. And just introducing Sarah Crooks here, who manages our environmental and compliance affairs, among other things. And my father, Ray Wilkins, sitting over by the wall there. Just wanted to talk to a few key issues from our submission, being power transmission through northern Southland, roading, rural residential subdivisions, and something we didn't submit on, but I wonder if you'd permit me to speak very briefly about wild geese management in the region. So yeah, I've got a few words on each of those topics. Cheers. So we encourage a review on the decision-making process on methods of power transmission. So local ratepayers and landowners are consulted, and we encourage more transparency on the merits of preferred methods, such as above ground versus underground, and just general scrutiny on the alternatives. So the best outcome is achieved to meet important objectives. The new pole installation along State Highway 6 in northern Southland, in our view, is both insane and immoral, and we think it's a ghastly blight on what was a world-renowned admired landscape by locals and travellers. And I think the picture says 1,000 words when you can see the juxtaposition there on the overhead. I feel it's a real come to Jesus moment on what we're doing on the landscape. Hence, we're bringing it to attention to you guys. And we feel this is one of the last uncluttered landscapes in the country, frequently used by, well, it's frequently used by advertising agencies selling New Zealand's image. And you often see it selling cars, exploiting the clear canvas roadside views. And further south on that road, just recently we've noticed the addition of the poles just north of Athol, the State Highway 6. There's a corner that the locals call Siberia, or Dead Man's Corner. It doesn't get a lot of daylight at this time of year. And it's notorious for people running off the road in frozen conditions. Now, these poles have been placed right in the way where the unfortunate occasion where people might slide off the road. It's right in the firing zone, a death trap, we think. Also on that stretch there, you can see between Fairlight and Kingston, it's notorious for gale winds. We farm in that valley here.
It's 2 minutes morning.
Notorious for gale winds and snow. the winds come down the Wallacetown Valley, and these are both major threats to the above ground power transmission. Now, we expressed these concerns with Power Net Management earlier this year when we noticed the poles going up, and we've copied SDC and Robin on this conversation. And we're meeting Power Net at the end of the month to discuss the issue. So that's our transmission comments. The next thing was roading. Now, we encourage a model where the roading funds are allocated to where the road user charges are paid, where the gross domestic product is produced and high value products are produced. Now, we think we can't afford to take a backward step with roading. The current state of roading network in our area we feel is not fit for purpose in such rural areas, and we could potentially explore other funding alternatives to bring this up to expectation. There's times we feel threatened as road users as such when a vehicle passes a dust cloud creates significant visibility hazards. Now, this could be tolerable in low traffic volume roads, but on such where significant industry takes place, we don't feel it's sustainable or safe. Even felt embarrassed when we were hosting international food consumers and customers, and we drove around our district to inspect the region's world-class food production systems. And we feel these are third world roads. Now, these are busy, productive roads, and contending with major dust clouds, potholes, jutta bars, and general mismanagement. We don't feel it's changed in 70 years. In fact, it's degraded. And recently, a big truck trailer overturned on our road carrying an industrial generator. Now, this was a straight, flat stretch of road which collided with a crater pothole, luckily avoiding injury or death, but was a major incident. Pouring or spending money on nice to have cycle trails, etc., when we have 70-year-old bridges which aren't wide enough for agricultural machinery. There's a hard concept for us to digest when these machines and the farming industry is paying the rates on these roads. We don't feel we're moving with the times in that regard. We'll move on to rural residential subdivisions. We've got two more brief points to go. Now, we encourage the development and spread of existing settlements to accommodate housing growth in the region, but we're opposed to scattering clusters of houses across the rural landscape, and we're opposed to the consumption of productive rural land where there are already reasonable housing options in proximity to existing rural settlements. And we support not further cluttering the rural district. And finally, if I may touch on the geese, we encourage controlled culling of the geese residing on the popular Tianao lakefront. Now, the geese are exotic species, as you know. They're soiling the beaches, defecating in dense public areas where children play. We see it as a risk for E. coli and other health threats, and they're threatening native species in the area who also reside there. We see them as a general nuisance, which could be easily managed. And now, unfortunately, they're spreading into the region. We do a lot of crop farming in northern Southland, and they're now devastating crops and colonising on the Mataro. So we'd like to thank you again for this opportunity you've given us to speak, and we look forward to hopefully you taking on board the feedback and taking on board in your considerations and the decisions for long-term planning. And we're happy to receive any questions. So
thank you, Sean.
Thanks for your time. Yes, I'm a little bit over.
No, that's right. Thanks for coming along. A couple of questions from me first, and then I'll hand over the floor. Have you approached Environment Southland about the geese?
Initially, yeah, but didn't get a response. Sent an email.
Yeah. In terms of the other funding alternatives that you mentioned for roading, do you have anything in mind as to what those might be?
Well, local companies might be open to suggestion on what we could do. I mean, I was aware that otter sealing was an option that has been used, and some negative feedback on that lately, but we're sceptical about whether perhaps it wasn't applied appropriately or correctly, or don't know, but not necessarily a roading expert myself, but that would be a scepticism. That could be explored more, exploring with local stakeholders other funding options. Alternatives to the regular options.
Okay, Fraser.
Wondering, you mentioned road user charges, and it's always a question I kind of think, how can we work with you, or how can you work with us better to influence central government on getting a fair share of that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's ways of modelling the GDP and the value coming out of certain areas specifically. I mean, we've all seen the examples when there's a forest, they will go and improve the roading in that area. Well, it's no different with whether it be agricultural production or primary produce. We see that similar models could be applied. Yeah, and we're happy to be cooperative and explore options.
We certainly provide information to wider stakeholder groups that have the area of government as well, as much as possible.
Councillor Butterclaw, then Councillor Duffy, then Councillor Wolfe.
Hi, Helen, thanks for coming today. I drove back from Queenstown on Monday, actually, I haven't been up to road for a while and with all the polls, it certainly opened my eyes, but I wanted to talk about the geese in Tiana, where the owners up there. Now, about 3 years ago, a group was set up to deal with the geese, and my husband was involved in eventually in Environment South and in the Department of Conservation turned down every proposal we put to them. Have you advocated anywhere else?
No, we haven't advocated anywhere else. Well, so we said, when I say early on, I think we noticed them nearly 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That we've noticed them there, and they were much more manageable then than they are now.
Yeah, that applied.
Yeah, and we just think it's a case of, you know, an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure, and could get out of hand in the region.
Well, it's right along that waterfront.
Yeah.
Too. It's really,
yeah. And now it's coming into the crops as well. That was where we first noticed them being a nuisance.
Councillor Duffy?
Well, I was just on the geese line too. Are they Canadian geese or?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Councillor Bentley?
So mine was the same, just because you said they started colonising on the Matara River.
Yeah.
Whereabouts on the Matara, and how big is that population now?
Thousands. You're seeing flocks of several hundred, I'll say thousands.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And do you think they've come from?
Gonna blow.
Do you think they've come from the Tiana sort of route and just spreading from?
Potentially, well, that was when we first noticed it, but I mean, leaves went Tiana and Northern Southland, that was when we first noticed it.
Yeah.
Nearly 10 years ago up there, and now they're starting to breed down where we are, and in Wyndham side where we hadn't noticed it before.
And that's a more recent
Yeah,
time,
certainly.
last 2 years.
Yeah,
type
yeah, and then in between those 10 years, we certainly noticed them more on 5 Rivers as well.
Mm. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, the laptop isn't the version to the word. But yeah, we're out of time now, but thank you very much for both your written and your submission. Yeah,
Thanks for listening, guys.
appreciate you coming along.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have next. We've got a gap, but we have Wendy John back there in the room. Are you happy to come up early, Ms. Baker, and speak? Yeah, you're on at 2 o'clock, but you're welcome to come up earlier. It's only 5 minutes. Oh, how long have you got? Sorry, 5 minutes, yeah.
Sorry, the 3.
You've got 5 minutes to speak, and then there's 5 minutes for questions afterwards, 10 minutes in total. If our timer carries on behaving itself. I apologise in advance if it runs a 1 minute. Well, we're ready when you are, Ms. Baker.
Thank you for letting me present today on the long-term plan. I've got a bit to say. I filled in the questionnaire, took quite a long time, but just briefly on some of the key issues. Water services management. Slow down is the preferred option I picked. And levels of service for roading, retain the present level of service of our roads. There's few potholes needing to be fixed as soon as possible, and more monitoring of roads by contractors. Some road edges need maintenance, like the Wairio Raised Bush Road area. I don't know if any of you have driven along there. Have you? The Wallaby Road and the edge of the road is actually I'll show you what it's like. You haven't done that. It's pretty bad on the edges of the road. Quite dangerous, in fact. So glass recycling. I don't agree with any more bins. I hardly use my bins, and being one person on their own, I think, yeah, I just don't agree with more bins and more cost for the ratepayers. The airport for Manapuri, what benefits does the Nightcaps ratepayer get? And what have you done to enhance Nightcaps? You know, you're talking about putting money into the airport at Manapuri, but what about other small towns? And I brought this up before, you know, other small towns need enhancing as well, and not just the more tourist locations. Yeah, so rates, I'd just like to say about rates. We're gonna move on to rates. Yeah, they're too high. $400 is approximately my proposed increase. So that brings me nearly up to $4,000. So it's, you know, $90 off, $4,000. And what do we get in Nightcaps for our money, our ratepayer money? I'm sorry, but it's putting a lot of pressure on different people, and that came across in the community board meeting as well in May. So I'm going to, I've brought these things up before, but I don't feel that they've been, you know, properly gone into, and that is dog control in McGregor Park. There's been vandalism of 4 dogs on lead signs, 3 of them removed or stolen, and it's irresponsible behaviour and safety issue in this park. There's a playground there, and there needs to be more done about dog owners and their dogs off leads. I'm sorry, but I've been rushed at twice in April on my bike, and yeah, it's just not good safety. And as kids use that park, they bike around there too. Where is the McGregor Park plan? Where is it? You know, the community board. When people make submissions to community boards, they need to be responded to and not ignored. There's no curb and channel on the left-hand side of Lynn Street. This causes flooding and bogginess to my driveway and the road reserve. Volunteers, I'm going to move on to that. They need appreciation. And I put a letter from Honorary Louise Upston, acknowledging all the volunteer work I do. That was in my submission. I was going to read it out, but I'll let you read that, and it's only a limited amount of time. So back to a little bit on my other things. Code of conduct at community board meetings on the 2nd of May in Nightcaps, it needs improving. Everyone, including myself, needs to be able to have their say without being bullied by other locals. And Jasper, you should have done more. I'm sorry. It was disrespect I will not accept. And I have asked SDC for a formal apology. Community board members need to also stop unkind behaviour, and that's fair. Lastly, I'd like there to be more appreciation of diversity in communities. We all have different lifestyles, and we all have a right to enjoy them. I'm going to end because I've done 40 years of running and achieving. I was Sports Person of the Year in 1987 at Massey University. I have this letter from Chris Bissett, the Minister, which acknowledges my sports achievements. It's very short, but I want to bring this up because I have every right to feel safe in McGregor Park Reserve when I go running and anywhere around regarding dogs on leads. It's a serious issue across Southland with your 28 dog attacks and rushes and all that in your reports. Dear Wendy Joy Baker, this is from Chris Bishop, the Minister for Sport and Recreation. Thank you for taking the time to write to me about your lifelong achievements in sport and recreation. Not only has your track and road, cross-country and triathlon record been extremely high achieving, you have epitomised the spirit of lifelong dedication to volunteer run events, so important to our national well-being. And I've been into the schools in nightcaps, in the Catholic school in nightcaps, and I have let the kids wear my medals. And Jaspreet and yourself, you weren't here at the last meeting, but here are my gold medals, and I am very proud of them for my sports this year, all right? And here is my 1984 trophy for running, 40 years. Why should I be bullied by some irresponsible dog owners who don't put their dogs on leads? And there's other people that are upset about those sort of things too. So I'd like some improvements, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Appreciate you taking the time to come and present to us again. Do we have any questions from the floor? Councillor Baker?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Baker. I noticed your two comments about roading and the curbing channel not being present and the flooding you're experiencing. Have you put in RFIs at any time? Request for services?
Yes, I have, and it's gone to the community board. It always goes to the community board. Those requests for services about the flooding along the Curbin Channel, it has to go to the community board. That's what I've heard back.
The roading issues and all, have you actually used the antenna app that you do have?
That's another thing. Some people, like myself, haven't got the phone storage to use lots of apps in that and download. It's not practicable in lots of ways. And I know when I was in the council library, somebody didn't have email. Well, that's fair enough. People have different ways of communicating. And that's something that really the council needs to. It's not always about apps, sorry.
No, I agree. Are you, in that case, are you able to take photographs and email them to either the community board or not?
I have done all that, yes. And I am very disappointed in the way that the council has got back to me on different things, like the stuff to the community board and submissions made to the community board. And I think I brought that up in the community board meeting in May.
There were others who brought that up, but they did send through the photographs which were put up as RFSs.
I always send through the
I will go back and see, but I'll have to dispute that I haven't seen any pictures of any flooding or anything that's been brought to my attention.
Well, I've got all the flooding pictures here.
So I'll follow that up with the community in one person and see if we can put an RFS on your behalf.
Yeah, I've seen, this is 2003, 2004, 24, sorry, 23.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from the floor? Leaving then, I'll thank you once again for coming.
Saving money, this was put in my letterbox for the water shutdown. Why do you need to do A3 sized, mail outs or put outs in the better colour? You've got to think about saving money, and the lights were on at the Rotunda in winter when I came through. It's daytime, they don't need to be on. All these little things add up. And when a ratepayer like me, sees all these things, it makes me wonder, what, as I have said, what is the council doing to save money? And I'm sorry for going over time,
that's all right.
But yeah,
thank you once again.
Pretty stern issues that I'd like to have addressed, and I have been over them year after year after year, and it's upsetting.
Well, thank you for bringing them to our attention and taking the time. We'll appreciate it. Okay, so we're going to be adjourning the meeting for a little while until our next speaker, which I believe is coming in at 2:10. So with a half-hour break, I will move to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second? Councillor Mike for aye. All those in favour, please say aye. Anyone against? Carried. So we'll come back here just before 2:10, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
They don't have to apply to us for the resource consent. Because we had issues with cell towers. People coming to council and, yeah, look at it and stuff like that.
Can't do anything.
Pretty much.
Okay, welcome back everyone. A little bit earlier than predicted, but we've got Dylan and Aaron here from the Waikato Trails Trust on page 366 of your agenda. So welcome to come up to the table, guys, and
The roof is nice.
you can fire up whenever you're ready. Welcome, thank you for coming along.
Thanks, Rob, and thank you to the opportunity to come and talk to you guys. I recognise all the basis from the trip you guys did up at Waikato to visit our front track at Waikato and the trails as well. So I know we've only got limited time, and I think you're well aware of the quality of trail that was being built and what the front track has meant for the township, etc. But I'm Dylan Litchfield. This is Aaron Goodall. Aaron is the newest member of the trust, and we're 2 of 6 members of the trust with Jim Davison as our administrator. So so we've been through that. The project outline at the current stage, you saw stage 1 complete with the pump track. Stage 2, we're in there with the trails. Where it sits right now is that we're about 1 kilometre off that loop, that first loop being finished. We had to stop because of weather and it wasn't conducive to continue on with the development. But that will be finished in spring, and hopefully by summer that will be opened up for cyclists. So so that stage 2 will be completed. We've got another 4 stages to complete, and we estimate around about $300,000 per stage to be built at the stage. That's an estimate because of the original ones were probably about 2/3 of that done 4 years ago, and since then inflation's come in. Of course, you saw the challenges that Milty had within the forestry where he was at the time, so it's taken a bit longer than he expected. We've had some amazing support from our own community. We've done numerous fundraising events, from pub quizzes, which we had one tonight as well, to Waikato Flyer. We've had other organisations, charities give as well as some significant funds from yourself and other major charities, which we're extremely grateful for to get the project running. So I'll get straight to the point where I guess as you read in our submission letter, as this conversation started with our chair, Hilary Kelso, we're here to represent. We're proposing that the council seriously consider a quarter to a third of each stage to be funded through the profits of the Waikato forestry itself. And Aaron will come to talk to some of the detail of why we think that would be appropriate and aligns with where we're heading with the project. And I guess, so to put down the numbers, it would be between 75 to 100,000 per stage as a contribution, just to get things off. Yeah, over what we estimate for 4 stages to build, we'd think around about 3 years to put the deal would be open to if you are seriously willing to consider that, how that might go within that 3 years. I'll hand over to you now.
So especially as Dylan mentioned, I am the newest member, and from my insight so far, we're very impressed with the well-organised and professionalism of the trust, and the mission of its community support that we've had as well. And it will be done, it's ready to continue on and continue with the project. Funding restraints are our biggest barrier at the moment, and we've got limited sources of funds. But if we could get this base from SDC as their initial funding, that'll go a long way to bringing additional funding through as well. Because with the other funders, some of the criteria they have is they need certain funding secured in place first. So it's a scenario. So if we get that base, that would be ideal. we see this as a really positive project, can be supported and aided by the council. At the end of the day, all about improving Southland, and we think this is a really exciting while the future. So I guess I just finished on just some examples. I guess would like the council to consider it more as an investment than a just handing out. Because if you just some examples of that, just recently with the Gold Towers, I stated in paper when I read $2 million was brought in for that one event. So I think you're well aware of people coming into the province to stay and do things that what it can bring to the province. And also, if you look at the Redwoods, which is a major cycling trails up in Rotorua, which is obviously a lot larger than what happened there. The revenue that's generated from that, it far exceeds the actual forestry income, profits come from forestry. So whilst we don't have the population, once we get it up and running, or I believe that it will, as I've stated in the letter, it would, I know other areas are really interested and keen to see how ours go, to see if they could do the same in their province. Then we've got that infrastructure of cycling trails within a region, then you've got lots of cyclists coming in, spending money, and hopefully getting indirectly through into rates to the council. So that would be how I'd finish.
Thank you very much. And yeah, we had the All Trails passed in yesterday, and I said it then, and I'll say it again now, it's incredible what our communities can actually do, and the passion and the amount of hours that you put into volunteer hours that you put into these what become really great assets. It's admirable. So just acknowledging the great work that you and your trust do. A quick question for me, then I'll hand over to the team. But in terms of, you would have seen our rates increase as not the prettiest number in the world, and a lot of people are kind of challenging us on nice to haves and need to haves, and this could be seen as a nice to have. How do you see, even as a ratepayer yourself, that sort of stacking up in terms of the priorities for us as a council with the core infrastructure and then these sort of sideline, not taking away from the providence of what they are, but
well, it's a balancing act, I guess, from the outside looking in. I mean, I don't envy you, that's for sure. Particularly be one of the most challenging times I've been in council in the country for many years. And so I guess I could say I come with a bit of guilt asking for money. However, I guess there's the balancing act. How much do you recognise what is actually investment? I guess you're taking our word for what could come into the province, and we still want people to be attracted to come into Southland. And I see what we're doing here that could transpire to other cycling trails too. Not only will it bring in revenue, be it indirectly, and potentially more ratepayers that they like coming here because you've got that infrastructure that will add to the bottom line as well. So I guess we are talking to a long-term plan, not a short-term plan as well. And I see this as part of that long-term plan because it's taking on. So here's an example which I've just been talking to Southern Parallel campus, and I've just got the big tick. But basically, they're a military veterans organisation. They've just got the big tick in their students for a $200 million equine centre and education skill centre. And as part of that, Aaron Hull was based in Mandeville. They're going to be using Mandeville and Waikaia as part of that education piece. And so I've got a letter here that I can give or send to you from the head of the person who's doing that just yesterday, who said that they're part of their plan, and their long-term plan is to have a 48-week program running with 25 veterans will come into at a time, and Aaron will head that, and they are really excited about using the Waikaia trails as well as the Waikaia area. There's a really deep connection with Glenaria Station, with the military, because of between World War I and World War II. Aaron is an incredible historian on all that stuff. He talked about how the owner of Glenaria Station helped the training because he saw the World War II coming. So there's all those connections there. With the gold mining as into part of our trails as well, that they're really interested in this, and giving back service to these communities as well. So it's not just taking, it's contributing.
Are there any other questions from the board? Councillor Byers.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks very much for this. you mentioned the redwoods in Rotorua and some income being generated there that's more than the forestry. Do you envisage income being generated from the bike, the trail users in Waikato?
Not indirectly, yeah, mainly indirectly. We see that Waikato benefit from people coming to the region. Therefore, the township could grow things like bike servicing equipment, and we're hoping that the trails will be near to free to be cycling on, so it's open to everybody. And we also the trails, which I haven't mentioned, is you're probably well aware, we're very diverse, so it's allowed for adaptive riders as well as beginner riders, and as well as advanced as well. So it's not very narrow; it's quite wide to cater for. So yeah, to answer your question, like more indirect coming in through combination of those sorts of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you once again, and yeah, not just for coming along today and submitting, but also for the great work that you're doing out in the community. It's great to have people like you doing the work that you're doing. So thank you very much, and we appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah. And seeing you up there again.
Give it a breath.
On my bike next one.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, I can Belinda Wheatle on there.
Good thing.
On the calendar, on the Zoom.
Looks like, yeah, Chris, again,
Yeah, let me know.
okay, so our next speaker is Mrs. Strickland Henderson, and that's on page 42 of your agenda, and she's coming in via Zoom today from somewhere in northern Southland. Can you hear us at all, Christine? Just checking if you can hear us there, Christine. She's from the library in London, or she's going. Can you hear us there, Christine? Technology is great when it works. Are you getting a response on chat? Yes. We can maybe do it from the phone as well, if we did this work. Okay, proceed.
Oh, yeah. Frozen on time. Yeah.
Can you hear us at all, Christine?
Is she on mute?
I wonder if we can turn her on. You're on it.
Not sure what's going on. She's on mute. She's on mute.
You're on mute if you can hear me, Christine. Not if you can hear me.
She might have the volume turned down on her computer.
He's off mute. It's just not.
Perhaps she just in case she can hear us.
Hope you're not waiting on me.
Yes. Can you hear us?
Well, it's very muffled. The sound is very muffled, unfortunately. So you'll have to forbear with me if I say pardon on a number of occasions.
We can hear you loud and clear, so that's the
Oh,
important part.
That's definitely the main thing. Are you wanting me to start now because you're a bit early?
If that suits you, all right. Does that suit you?
Can I start now?
Yes. Do you want to chat and get the landline number and I can give her a ring on that?
Oh, you can make a start. Are you waiting for someone else, are you?
Have you got your landline phone number, Christine? If you just chat that through, I'll ring you on that and then we can maybe get a clearer connection.
Oh, that's crafty. Hold on, 2 ticks over. Yes, 03248.
Yes.
7605. It should be on my submission, but it mightn't be.
I'll give you a call on that and we'll see if that's better.
Right, I'll go. You've done that right now. Boy, that's quick.
Technology.
Hello.
Oh.
Oh, hold on. I've got still. Hold on, 2 ticks.
We might have to feedback. We might have to meet her on.
Hello, Mr. Henderson to you. Mr. Henderson.
Sorry about that. I had the answer phone on, and so of course it clashed with your phone call. So could you give me another phone call, please?
Certainly.
Hello.
Hello. And you might just need to mute yourself on the TV so I don't get the feedback on the computer, sorry. Right, can you hear us better now?
Yes, I can, but I can hear me now.
Yeah, if you mute yourself, you're unmuted.
How should I get it on?
Works for us.
Would it be better if we did that and just did the questions on? If we can hear her clearly.
Yeah.
Andrew, if you take her out of the equation, if you cut her off from Zoom and we'll just deal with it over the phone.
Put her in the waiting room.
Is any of that?
No, we'll need to move one on the other, so just, yeah.
For now, then we can restart. Yeah.
Cool. How's that, Christine? Is that better?
Oh, brilliant. Yes, absolutely.
Cool. So we just don't get to see your face now, but we can listen to your lovely voice. So you can start whenever you're ready.
You should be thankful for small mercies, Rob. Now, I presume you've all read my extensive submissions. I won't bother you with all that now. But I just, 1 or 2 articles came into my purview just before this process, just before this hearing. And so I went them through courtesy of your great team. One of the key ones that I wanted to reiterate is that one of the articles noted that governments make decisions and then require councils to carry them out. So they don't give them any money. And I think that's been characteristic of a whole lot of things, including, of course, the latest, which is infrastructure, but also, as I noted in my submission, trying to work out some sort of way of making life easier for Tuatapere and the Blue Cliffs people because of the whale and the decisions made 50 years ago to dewater it. The other one is earthquake proofing, which of course we now have 4 more years of grace to sort out. So in amongst all that, I think the key one is if the government requires councils to do something, they should at least provide some cash, because otherwise we're all struggling with extra imposts and no money to do it. The other one is, you would have noticed, I've got an envelope here, in the back of an envelope, which is typical of me. With climate change, of course, everything's predicated on climate change. And so whatever we do has to be with that in mind. And I'm heartened to see that all the councils are going to be working together on a plan, which we'll hopefully have another chance to submit to. But I looked at Stuart Island, for which I have a very fond place in my heart, because that's where David and I had a honeymoon, and that's always remember with great affection the lovely people over there. But they would be a perfect poster child for adaptation and mitigation of climate change. Because I know that the council has been struggling to look at an alternative energy source, but as you notice in my megawatts submission, I thought it was rather pointless to do anything until you've got them fully insulated and double glazed in the whole 9 yards. The other one is with climate change is the retrofitting of H&J Smith, because there's a lot of discussion about embedded carbon, but when I see how some of these classic buildings are treated, the embedded carbon goes to landfill, and we increase the carbon by building back with concrete and steel. So that's sorry, am I?
Yeah, it's not coming through loud and clear, yeah.
Oh, good, right, I'll stop in a minute. Also, if the council leads by example to retrofit, along with the city council, of course, and the Environment South, and retrofits H&J Smith, it's showing commitment, A, to protecting our built heritage, B, climate change, and looking at adaptive reuse for these empty buildings, and improving the outcomes for everyone. And then also with the council buildings, looking at dark sky lighting and gigawatts and energy efficiency. And the last that I've written down is when I look at all these big projects like the smelter and hydrogen and wind farms, none of which I think will benefit thousands of customers and jobs. None of them will be benefiting us in terms of landscape, land use, energy efficiency, and all these other things. I wrote down, don't confuse activity with progress, which is the cynical side of me coming out, but I've seen it so often in the last 78 years that I keep on having to remind myself that I'm old and it doesn't matter for me, but it does matter for all the people that come after me. Rob, thank you. I'll stop there, and if there's any questions that I can answer, I'd be happy to. Otherwise, you can let me go gently into the night.
Thank you very much, Christine. A question from me before I open it up to the floor. You're a regular submitter to council, I appreciate that. And just in terms of the process this time around in the document, did you find there's enough information in there for you, and were you comfortable with the process?
Yes. I do like the fact that you also gave space for any other consultation items, which I found very useful. But I think the key one for me, Rob, is local knowledge and grassroots consultation, real meaningful stuff. It's not enough to have CDAs and their whatever that came afterwards. We really do need community input somehow in a more informal manner, so we can talk over issues and work out which ones are important to the local community. And it seems to me that there's quite a bit goes on behind closed doors. And suddenly there's a nice glossy piece of paper outlining the plans for the next few years for each of the areas, which is helpful, but it's probably not. That's why I mentioned the north wall of the district council office in Lumsden, because the rotting boards have been there for a while now, and they weren't mentioned in the plan, whereas painting up the information centre was, and I looked at both of them, couldn't find any reason why it should happen. And the portaloo at the landfill, I mean, at the dump, because the poor people who look after it have been wanting one for the last at least pre-COVID, and I think it's morally a moral imperative to make life easier for those people who look after recycling, so-called.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the team around the table? That looks like we're all covered, but yeah, thank you once again, and yeah, very detailed submission, and we appreciate you taking the time to both write into us and also to speak to us as well. So thank you once again.
And my thanks to everyone there for being able to allow me to participate in a democratic process. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Christine. Have a wonderful
day. Bye. Bye.
We'll post down a plan B and a plan C. Missed all the device approving readings, but you know. Okay, so moving right along, we're still running a little bit ahead of schedule, but it looks like our next speaker is in the room. So are you happy to come up a bit earlier than scheduled? Yeah. So I welcome Mr. Fraser to the table, and this is on page 85 of the documents. I think you know the drill, 5 minutes of presentation and then 5 minutes of questioning. And yeah, thank you for coming on today. And I'll let you start whenever you want.
Yep, thanks, Rob. Thanks, Gavin. It's an opportunity to come along here. Great to see you out in the country. Take that my submission is read. It was a reasonably short submission. Probably just make a few highlighted points. The proposed rate increase of 77% over 10 years to 2034 is, in my view, unsustainable. And I would suggest to you irresponsible. So, you know, that's particularly significant for the farming sector to shoulder the disproportionate amount of the rates. And of course, it fails to address what central government are trying to do in reducing costs and getting inflation under control. And that's particularly a problem for farmers. There's a lot of money borrowed, and inflation has a big effect on what money they, you know, get that cash rate down. It's probably pretty important for farmers. So a lot of your rural locos are under huge financial pressure. And I think you've got a responsibility as council to reflect the economic circumstances that your ratepayers find. So now is not the time for big new capital projects. So I would suggest it's time to get the ruler out and the red pen and put the line through some of your projects and bring things back under control. Use of the UAGC again would help the farming sector as being a little bit more spread the rate of burden a bit more equitably. Stormwater, you're probably paying for a quarter charge for stormwater and subsidising their water share. This defies logic to me, but that's a big question. So I'll just leave it at that. I strongly oppose the generating funding of the Tiana Airport. You know, there's a real folly in local government funding tourist operations, and I see that as a tourist facility. You know, we had the same thing several years ago, which I got involved in with completion of the cycle trail and the money that was spent there to do that. That was taken out of the disaster eroding fund. And as far as I'm aware, the commitment by council at that time was for that to be repaid. And of course, if it was repaid out of the road fund, farmers would again pay 65% of that cost. Again, it's a direct subsidy from farming to the tourist sector. I believe, and I stand to be corrected, I'm not sure that money hasn't been, that loan hasn't been repaid. And of course, my pet subject, road funding. I've talked to you before, the council recently about it, and provide some information to you. It's time really for
just 2 minutes there.
2 minutes, okay, sorry. Road funding model used by SDC fails to relate road use, road expenditure to a relevant benefit for each land use sector. I popped online yesterday and was listening to a couple of the forestry ones just briefly. It's amazing how aligned they are with what farmers have been on this subject since what 2007. 17 years we've been saying the model is flawed. And I heard foresters saying that about it yesterday, outdated, flawed, wrong, fundamentally flawed process, big holes in the process. Those sort of things that, we've said it in a different way, but we've been saying that for quite some time now. So, the current model subjectively makes calls around the damage to the roads and attributes it by way of tonnage. It arbitrarily attributes costs to heavy vehicles, the farming and forestry sector in particular. It arbitrarily uses a 10% calculation for the uniform charge. And the net result is farming pays 63% of the roading rate, 63%. Forestry, 7%. This is your latest figures on your new plan. So The land use sector pays 70% of the road rates. And yet the commercial sector pays 2.5%, and that covers all of your tourist infrastructure. 2.5%. Industrial sector, 2.6%, all your processing plants and the likes. Massive users of the infrastructure. And yet it's all falls back because of your flawed model back to the rural sector. And I'm going to challenge you here today, and it's about time that you looked and had an independent look at the model you've got. I listened in to Mr. Wyatt a week or two ago, and I have to say, and I'm going to be fairly frank here, it was the most unprofessional contribution I've seen made to any board anywhere in my governance career. I'll leave it at that, but I challenge you that you need to go back to basics and have a look at this again. The SDC had three companies come in and do this work. PwC together with MWH, GHD, and then Morrison Lowe. And essentially you're on Morrison Lowe kick at the moment, and it's fundamentally flawed, and that you really need to look at it. So happy just, I know I'm over the time now, but
that's right.
happy
to go over your question time.
Yeah.
You're welcome to, yeah.
So happy to answer any questions. So sorry to be so blunt, but there's a sense of frustration I have at the moment.
No, we can definitely feel your frustrations. But yeah, no, thank you for coming along and sharing. A question from me, the big new capital project you referred to that we shouldn't spend, have you got any examples of that you've seen with the long-term plan that you think we shouldn't be doing?
Well, I'm not in a position to make those sort of calls. You know, that's your job as governors to make those sort of calls, because you're in the possession of the sort of numbers and information. So I just think you need to prioritise your spending and bring your spending under control. And I think you should be having a nil rate increase. So most people in the community at the moment, certainly in the farming sector, they're not nil, they're way below nil. They're having to pull their belts way back. And there's a lot of farmers out there in real dire straits, and I'm worried about the mental well-being of a lot of my colleagues, particularly my younger colleagues that are in a difficult position. And, you know, a 15% rate increase is just, as I said at the start, irresponsible, and I think you need to address it. And I think you need to make a call and just put it out on a piece of paper and just make some calls about what you can leave.
But I've got another question, but I'll leave it till the end just in case I'm run out of time. So are there any questions from the floor? Councillor Collins?
Thanks, Roger. Thanks, Doug. You mentioned the folly of local government funding tourism. This council puts 450,000 or plus 250, about $700,000 into regional promotion. Would that fall under the folly that you're talking about?
That's so. And of course, you see that's what I'm trying to link, is that sort of expenditure along with the expenditure we spend on the roads, you know, on the sewage systems, on the stormwater system. You know, I should be sending you a bill for taking water off your roads and dealing with it. Because that's my responsibility as a neighbour to you, you being SDC, is to take water off your roading system. I do that at my cost. I'm not sure at any of my business where you take my stormwater and deal with it. I'd be interested to know if there is, but there's not, is it? Unless I'm missing something really important. I don't think I am.
Right, there's no other questions. I'll ask my second one. Yes. In terms of the 0% rates increase, which, to be honest, I think we'd all love to do, but that does come at a cost. And with the majority of our rates being taken up with the infrastructure, particularly roading, would you be willing to see us hold back on our roading expenditure and potentially let that infrastructure slip to have a 0% rates increase?
Yeah, you have to, Rob. I mean, so that's what farmers are doing today. Yeah, they're cutting back on fertiliser, on the fencing maintenance, on buying a new tractor or whatever, all those sort of things that you would normally do on a day-to-day business of replacing plant and equipment. You make those sort of calls. And you have to make those calls based on the information you have staff provided.
Councillor Fagan?
Just to follow up on that, so you'd be happy for us to cut back on roads so that roads or bridges would be closed so farmers don't have access to land? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you can,
That could be the extent.
that's you're paid to make those sort of calls.
But that's.
I'm not in a position to make a call about what bridge you close or what road you rip up from tar seal to gravel. That's the sort of, that's way above my pay grade. That's what you guys have have to make those decisions. But the point is, each and every farmer out there is making those decisions now. He's making the decisions about what he's got to cut out to try and keep his business going, feed his family, and not go out the back door, and keep his mental state in some sort of reasonable state of affairs. And local government insurance are the two big things that are really hitting farmers. My rate bill between here, SDC and ES, is going to go up by over $5,000 this year if your proposal goes here. That's unsustainable, I'm sorry.
Thank you, and your time is up, so thank you very much, and I can certainly feel your passion and your frustration, and again, appreciate you taking the time to let us know, so.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so we are sitting.
We've got,
Three
two
o'clock.
investors online.
Is she?
Yep.
Where is Susie?
She's been the extra one that,
She got
yeah, she got tagged in yesterday.
Okay.
She is online.
On this note, we should click on the Susie things. I don't have a phone with us, hopefully the technology works.
You got a written discussion?
Yeah, that's simple.
Well, I'm trying to think of what page it is. Do we know what page?
It is. We have, no one can pay these rates. In 3 years, we have a total of people. Oh, we haven't seen the end of this. In another 2 years, economically, what's going to happen is going to be a carnage. You don't have to look at UK. Hungary doesn't also going bankrupt, having scaled down. What does it do? Yeah, in this form has to be.
Reminder, we're still live, everybody too.
Yeah. Yeah. This particular form is unfortunate.
Yeah, and there's our speaker Vincent. Right, so our next speaker is, I believe, Susie Bess. Can you hear us? Good afternoon, Susie, are you there? Can you hear us at all, Susie? Good afternoon, Susie. Can you hear us there at all?
Oh, she's connecting to audio.
Okay, cool. Let's set it on so.
Practice.
Do we have a phone number for you?
Robin can find us on the submission.
Good afternoon, Susie. Can you hear us there at all? Do we jump to Glennis, who's just jumped in, and then we can come back to Susie, who hopefully, if we can get in touch with. Because it doesn't sound like we're going to connect through to Susie. Let's do that, eh? Are you able to swap them over to Glennis and then hopefully you can get in touch with?
I might have a phone number. Possibly here.
Yeah, there's a phone number for the archives. I also have.
That's not the one.
Shall, do you want to try a phone number?
Yeah, if someone can try one, we'll do this one now, and then if someone from the staff want to try and reach out to Susie. Good afternoon, Dennis. Can you hear us at all?
Do you want the phone number?
Yes.
027
I can hear you. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
211 4675.
So you were coming through a bit quiet. Just trying to try again and speak to us again. Sorry, Glenn.
Hello?
G'day. You're coming through a little bit quiet, but we'll hopefully be able to hear you. So yeah, we're ready to, if you're ready to go, we can take your submission. So welcome along, and you've got 5 minutes to submit and then 5 minutes to questions afterwards. So we're ready when you are.
Okay, thank you. I was wanting to
Oh no,
be prepared, and now I've lost all my notes. So
do you want us to
just-
give you a bit more time?
Yeah, that's okay. Hopefully I can get them in front of me.
Do you have a microphone quite close? You're sort of cutting in and out. We're not really hearing you.
Hello?
That's better.
No.
Way better. Perfect.
I will just, sorry, I'll just change some settings. Is that better?
Yeah, much better. Much.
Okay. My name is, hold on, I now just have to switch screens, sorry. Tēnā koe, my name's Glynis Hanley. I'm here on behalf of Ōwaka Going Forward. We are progressing with having the Catlins as a dark sky reserve. The submission that we have made to the council is about wanting support for two parts of the process. One is with creating educational resources, and the other is with looking at lighting proposals. I guess for us, the importance of having a dark sky reserve here is really to highlight the Catlins' natural unique beauty and its night skies. There are a number of dark sky reserves, communities, initiatives that are currently underway in New Zealand. I believe that there are already, there's already one on Stewart Island, Rakiura, which is a dark sky community, and there is one underway in Fiordland. We are also trying to get a dark sky reserve in the Catlins. We have spoken with the Clutha District Council, who have been supportive. We're wanting support from Southland District Council, specifically around work on lighting policy so that it aligns with the dark sky requirements. We see that there's a lot of benefits to the Catlins area, that there's a potential for increased ecotourism, particularly with dark sky reserve and stargazers. It is also, we have quite a large population of our native bats that reside in the Catlins, and so dark sky is quite good for them. There's also educational opportunities for our local schools, and the support that we're after from the Southland Council is really around education, resources, and for looking into the lighting policies so that they align. And I just would like you to support our establishment of a Catlins Dark Sky Reserve. I think it's a good opportunity for the Southland and the Clutha District Council to work together on something. There's multiple benefits for the environment, community and local economy. And I think it's a positive legacy for future generations. Just want to thank you for your time today. Are there any questions?
Well, thank you very much for your presentation and the work that you're doing, and it's sort of clear that Mother Nature doesn't see boundary lines between councils like we do on paper. Just a quick question from me before I hand over to the other councillors. Have you presented to the Waihopai Tortua Community Board at all with this?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sorry. Have you presented to the Waihopai Tortua Community Board at all in relation to this?
No.
Okay, cool. Might be worthwhile having a chat with them as well. I'll open up the floor for questions. Do we have any questions from the councillors?
Yes, I have a question. Have you spoken to Great South about this project?
So where we're at the moment is we were looking at what is it going to take to get this off the ground. So we are a subcommittee of All Waka going forward. The work we've done so far has been in contact with the Dark Sky organisation. So we have defined our core area, which is the I think it's called the something reserve, which is the core sort of the Catlins, and then the wider peripheral zone is the entirety of the Catlins that is over the two councils, is geographically in both councils. With regard to contacting other organisations that have been through a dark sky process, we have had communication with them. We have registered with Dark Sky. We've paid our registration fee. Our next steps are to get in contact with them and to put in a formal application. So we're at the really at the preliminary stages. We have reached out to some of the different areas. Somebody from our group has reached out to Rakiura. Somebody has reached out to Twizel. To Lake Tekapo, and someone was reached out to Kaikoura. We are still needing to put in our application, and it just so happened that the 10-year plans for both Clusa and Southland are at this time. We are aware that the focus really is around lighting policy and the educational arm. So we're investigating support for those as part of our process. So I believe that someone has reached out to different organisations, but we're kind of at the early stage. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions? There being none, well, thank you very much for taking the time to submit both in writing and for coming along today. So thank you very much and good luck with your project.
Ka kite, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll try again for our previous.
And 2018.
Probably like district plan change.
Lighting, they should be set, the district should be compliant. It's all the lighting was switched to LED, weren't they?
What's that? Street lights.
Yeah.
But that was the only cost involved?
It might be.
Communities, they need to talk to the communities down outside. We have the islands, it was very.
Very, I would say from the council side in those areas.
They need to post downwards.
Right. So it's like a dark sky. For us to police.
If you can hear us at all, Susie, just shout out.
New development to be considered.
How about the existing?
That's gonna be.
In retrospect?
I mean, I think I've kind of just done 3 or 4 lights that need to change with it.
Yeah.
Okay, I got too late to make.
Actually, even it came down to the basics, there were no lights. Other than the street lights, we had no lights, actually, there were 2 on the wall. They're exempt because our security license.
Yeah. Nothing else.
I wouldn't imagine.
And the only other one
was lighting down.
just
That's
what I call residents.
a district plan change.
Yeah.
This would be sort of get the point.
So you don't go after the existing ones, just the new ones.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think it was an issue.
And I wonder how to, I found that that's led to this.
Yes.
John, I didn't quite chat out and just
But I'm not standing you. It's fine to be you like to do more
Than the other.
all you're doing is making sure. We did have some interesting submissions when they came up with Stuart Island. Central Maiden.
Good afternoon.
Oh, we can hear you on both. That's definitely coming through. I'll hang up from the phone because we can hear you through the system.
Fabulous.
Cool. Good afternoon, Susie.
Hey, kia ora.
We can't quite see you, but we can hear you. So we'll run with that. We can just see a bit of a light in the corner of your camera. But we're ready to start when you are. Thank you for coming along, and we'll give you 5 minutes to speak, and then 5 minutes for questions from councillors. So just whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Sorry, you can't see me. Kia ora, my name's Susie Best. I'm the manager of the Central and Western Archive, and I've been asked to please pass on that I have been asked to represent us because most of our governance team are actually tied up with council, so there is conflict of interest. So, and that is also why I'm the funding manager as well, because we just needed to have that demarcation. So for those of you who aren't aware of us, we were originally set up as a community archive project, an online museum, to digitally gather and store and preserve and record and share our local history. But because, unfortunately, our other prior local museum is no longer operational, we had so many people approach us to ask us if we would actually take physical archives on, as well as just loan them to digitise them to preserve them. And so after a number of meetings and finding out that there was a building available locally, trying to do due diligence and finding out what funding options there were for especially operational costs going forward, and if we would be able to be sustainable and cover our costs, we decided to buy, with Southern District Council permission, a building on their land. So we ended up with a lease agreement which requires us to pay quite a number of operational costs, whether we're open or not, obviously just for the building. We had been advised to reapply when we opened for the District Heritage Fund and make an application for that. And we were very surprised to be told we didn't meet the criteria. We are set up to set the standards. We are members of Museums Aotearoa, which you have to reach a professional standard to be able to even be accepted by them. We are under the NSTP Te Papa museum standards, and we were very confused as to why we wouldn't meet criteria. We're publicly open, we are taking in historical records, and after quite a lot of toing and froing, we were eventually told that the District Heritage Fund had been made uncontestable, and basically if you weren't named in it, you could not access any of the funds. We hadn't been told that up front, which was very unfortunate, because we made decisions about setting up this heritage institution here under the belief that we would be able to access the heritage rates that all of our properties here are paying to come back to our local district. And to find out that we couldn't has actually, to be fair, upset quite a few local residents. It's also made it very worrying for myself as manager and our governance group going forward, because we've been left basically without any operational funding. Someone at the council kindly told us to approach CTS, but we've had CTS discussions and they say they're not doing operational funding. So we want to point out the issues here with there being a contestable, an uncontestable fund for the heritage funding, that if any changes occur within heritage institutions, such as someone closes, someone opens, someone has to re-establish themselves, there's no way for them to access that fund.
And we didn't believe that that was a fair playing field. We also felt that that didn't really represent the Southern District Council's policy of supporting sustainable heritage preservation within the district. So we have submitted that the fund actually be changed back to a contestable fund so that anybody existing or new or with changing circumstances can actually apply to have some of these covered, because when it comes to operational funding, that's very, very few people will cover that. And our heritage is so important. And like I say, we are actually the only operational non-profit heritage institution in our district. And in the situation we find ourselves right now, it's quite actually honestly terrifying whether we can carry on. And we don't need any more local heritage institutions falling over, you could say, from lack of funding, because there's been an oversight for no new institutions to be able to come on board. So there's actually no one in our district receiving any heritage funding from the District Heritage Fund. And yes, we found ourselves unable to access that either, even though we had met every standard and criteria that there is for every other form of funding. We were cut out from this. So yes, we would really, really like to see changes made so that this doesn't happen ongoing or for future, or for other people who may also find themselves in the same situation. So that's probably about all I have to say about that.
Thanks,
myself,
Susie.
yeah.
Yeah, that was our time. Almost took the full 5 or just over the 5 minutes. So we're into the question time now, or you're welcome to, if you wanted to carry on a little bit further to summarise, but it sounds like you're at the point of questions. Thank you for that submission, and I'll open to the floor for any questions. Councillor Menzies.
Thank you. Susie, just in terms of if that application was able to be made, what would you be seeking in the way of support for operational funding from the council?
So in effect, the same as what every other heritage institution is already receiving under the non-contestable fund. I've been in the heritage field in Southland, so I've made these applications for other institutions. So it is the general operational funding, insurance, power, phone, all those kind of expenses that we need. I mean, we have set the standards we have to meet. We have to keep the power, the temperature within a certain range. We have to have the relative humidity within a set range. We have to keep rodents and insects out. We've got all these things that we have to do to preserve our heritage, which we can't do without finances. And while I did rattle around really quickly and organise a book sale and get some cash in to kind of cover the power bill going forward, just for now, it leaves a massive hole in going forward, because we truly had believed that we would be able to access this money.
Yes, just understanding what is the amount of money that you would be seeking.
Amount of money. Okay,
yes.
So our operational funds per year to meet the sector standards are around about between $10,000 and $12,000, but we wouldn't expect all of that. We do fundraise ourselves, but we would expect, some part of that to be contributed out of the heritage rate back to our local area.
Right, because that's a set fund at the moment, so that has an impact, I guess, across all the areas that we're seeking funding from the heritage rate.
Are there any other questions?
It's Paul here, Susie. Do you realise that fund doesn't actually come from the heritage rate? It's a district amount allocated from the general rate. Just so.
I apologise about that. No, we were under the impression that the heritage rates were to be used back in districts where they were taken from, and that was the impression we were given, as that that's what this was from. So, but it's been a sort of a bit of a bone of contention out here that we aren't really getting funding as a district for heritage very much at all, and yeah, how do we go forward as a district?
You received that $5,500 towards their archive project.
For the NAS, yes, we did just receive that. Thank you.
Yeah, and the only museum in Southland District that's getting any operational funding from the regional heritage rate is actually Te Hikoi, who get about 15,000 a year. And that the other small museums, they don't meet the criteria under that rate. So the council set up a separate amount, which is what you were talking about.
Okay, I apologise about that miscommunication.
Yeah.
No, it's good to know, and thank you for pointing that out. So we sort of have more of an idea of what's happening and where the money's coming from. But yeah, so we had, like I say, been led to believe that when we opened, we could apply for district heritage funding, and then to be told we didn't meet the criteria was very strange. To eventually get to the point where we were told there was no criteria, and that it was actually non-contestable and named recipients only. So that, like I say, cuts out anybody trying to set up or regroup, or what we're trying to do is actually save the heritage that's being lost here, because we have already one closed institution. We don't want another one.
Thanks for that, Susie. Just a quick question from me. Does anyone else have any questions? Do you have any paid staff, or is it all volunteers that are running?
All completely volunteers.
No, thank you. We've had a few submitters from the likes of operations like yourselves across, whether it's museums or cycle trails or a whole lot of the community. So I guess just I'll leave with an acknowledgement of the great work that you, sorry, there's a thing shutting me out, with the great work that you do in the community, and thank you for running what you do, doing a lot with a little. So thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Thank you.
You have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks for taking the time.
Okay, kia ora. Yeah.
Okay, was that the time in the kitchen telling us it's time to break this mogo? We will adjourn the meeting now, because our next speaker, I believe, is at 3:30, so we'll have an afternoon tea. So I'll move the adjourn. As someone has considered that. Thank you, John. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Okay, we're back in line. Welcome back, everybody. We'll carry on with our LTP submitter hearings for this afternoon, and we've got Diane Wilson in the room, I believe. You are welcome to come up to the table, Diane, and thank you for coming along. And this is on page 78 and 81 of our agendas, and I'll get the timer just currently squashed. Thank you for coming along today, and yeah, we'll give you 5 minutes to present and then 5 minutes for questions, and it will make a noise at 2 minutes, so don't panic. I'll get a break every now and then.
Written it out, so, and I've used my eat timer.
I'll see the eat timer.
But I want to slow down. Hey, look, thanks for allowing me to speak. Firstly, I want to acknowledge the staff of the Southland District Council on the mammoth task of putting together the 2024 long-term plan. This is a delicate document, and a lot of work's gone into it, and all credit to them. What makes it a hard sell for me as a ratepayer, looking at this 13.66% rate increase, is that the Oraka-Aparima Community Board signed off and council implemented a 12-month free haul hire of council-owned and managed asset for Thornbury Hall. As mentioned in my submission, one booking was for 63 days. That equates to at least one individual booking per week for 12 months. It should have generated $9,450 in revenue. Chairman of the Oraka-Aparima Community Board publicly stated that there was no hire charge for that booking and any future bookings for 12 months. With that in mind, I ask you, are these really challenging times? I understand there was $11,000 in the Thornbury Hall Reserve Fund when $6,000 was paid out to fix the power issue and install 2 ranges. That's also mentioned in my submission. That would have left $5,000. Is that money to pay for the power that the free haul hire bookings use? And because there is no longer a local voluntary hall custodian, will it also have to pay for a contractor to inspect the hall after the booking is ceased? And will it also have to pay for a contractor to put the wheelie bins out for collection? I'd like you to know that the wheelie bins have missed 4 days of the collection cycle. They haven't been emptied or put out to be emptied. Suffice to say that $5,000 isn't going to last long. It looks like this free Thornbury haul hire policy will incur an added cost to the Thornbury ratepayers and probably result in increasing our already high haul levy in our rates. I respectfully ask this council to retract the free haul hire fee policy for the Thornbury Hall, reinstate the hire fees, and I'm probably pushing my luck here, but I ask that the $9,450 and any other lost revenue from bookings be reimbursed into the Thornbury Hall Reserve Fund. If the Thornbury ratepayers have to absorb a large rate increase, then let us see that council is pursuing all avenues to increase revenue, not make policies to reduce it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I probably could have bought a new.
Yeah, just before the 2-minute beat.
Short and sweet.
No, thank you for that. And I'll just ask you a quick question out before I hand over to the floor. With the hall, I believe one of the reasons for doing the free hall hire was because of the lack of usage to try and sort of promote the usage.
Yeah, that's mentioned in my submission.
Yeah. So how do you see the hall being used better, or like what does success look like in terms of usage to the hall for you?
I think all community halls are on a slippery slope. I think everyone would agree with that. How they're managed, definitely how they're managed is important. I think, as I mentioned in my submission, offering something for nothing to do it in the crowd. Sorry, that's not good business. That's not good management. Even though their intentions may have been good, it's putting their hall on the back burner. So I think it's management. I think it's looking at where savings can be made. Yeah, I don't think halls overall are going to be saved, but they don't need a helping hand, and this is a helping hand as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Thank you. That's the bias.
Thanks, Diane. Thanks for your support. I presume you're aware that the hall, the free hire was to the school, the primary school, while it was being refurbished. So the 9,400 of lost fees was probably a stretch to suggest that the hall was going to be occupied for that period of time that the school was there.
That's still not the point though, councillor. They booked the hall for that period of time. I picked that at that time there was 3 structures of fees. I picked the middle one, excluded the weekends where nobody else could have used the hall anyway because all their gear was in there. So I went for the middle ground. And I'm not picking on the school. I mean, it was good timing for them, really. I mean, this free hire thing came in October 23 and they wanted to book the hall for the start of the school term. So it was just good luck for them and good on them. But it could have generated, and I agree, maybe it might not have been used, but then it could have been. Yeah. There's been one booking since then for 5 days. That's another $700 or $150 a day. I know this is nothing compared to your budgets that you're dealing with, but if it's going to help keep their hall ticking over for a while, it's big bucks. Yeah.
And just to follow up, Diane, were you aware that, I mean, you're concerned about the ongoing costs, like the electricity, while the school was in there, you're aware that they did pay those costs?
Yes, yeah, that's in my submission too. Yeah, they paid their power and insurance. Yeah, but what about everyone else? What about the one that's just had it last month for 5 days? They were there from about 9:30 in the morning to about 7:30 at night. Heaters, lights, he's paying power. Yeah, it's all about management of it, isn't it? Who's paying for that repair? For everybody that uses it. And there was confusion over start dates when this was going to be implemented. There's 3 different start dates for that. And my family hired the hall on the 16th of December. They should have probably got it for nothing, but we were required to pay and happily paid a hire fee. I mean, the halls aren't guaranteed, how's the bills going to get paid? We're going to hire it out for nothing, give them pay for nothing. And even though that big booking was the school, it was still a booking, wasn't it?
You'll have to agree to disagree on that.
You know, it's reality. You don't give away your services just to count heads. It just doesn't make sense.
Oh, I'm just wondering with the school, given that it was, well, there was a refurbishment done to the school while they were there, would the ministry have not have paid that?
I would have thought they would have.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah. Yeah. So it wasn't like the same.
The perception is in the community that the Ministry of Education should have paid that hall hire for the school to use the hall.
Well, I
But they
think the
didn't need
ministry,
to. They got it for nothing.
well, the ministry expected the pupils to stay in the school whilst it was being renovated. And the board of trustees, as I understand it, and the teachers didn't feel that that was appropriate to have their learning environment in amongst the building site.
They should have taken that back to the ministry, and the ministry should have been billed for the time they spent in the hall. I'm not picking on the school. I'm a strong supporter of the school. It's just, it's not even principle, it's bad management. Really, no matter what the good intentions are, yeah.
Are there any further questions from the team? Councillor Member?
So just a question, you referred to the confusion about when the free hire fee started from, so that's probably something that get back to you on in the near future.
There was put out publicly 3 different start dates. One was from, I think, October 23.
Yeah.
The next one was the 1st of January, and then the next one was the 1st of July. That's all out in the public arena.
You mentioned the 13th of December as well.
Yeah.
So perhaps that can be.
Sorry. No, that's all right, whenever. Do you think there has been any extra users of the hall as a result of the free period or not?
No, the pair, it's hard to sort of calculate that because parish is a big part of this too. People were told that you can't use the heaters and the ranges at the same time, or, you know, so people were turned away or chose to not hire it. So there's no real true indication of how many people would have hired it. So something else here too about the power issue is my husband and I donated a heater for the meeting room in that hall. It was installed and then uninstalled, and now it's sitting in a cupboard. It's all about managing, isn't it?
So we have run out of time, but
Yeah.
thank you once again for coming
Thanks
along.
for your time.
And thank you for your kind feedback at the start too. It's good to
Well, I
about.
actually just get a lot of that too.
Got a couple today.
Have a good. That's good.
Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up, we're running a little bit ahead of schedule, but I believe our next speaker is in the room, so are you happy to come up earlier than your scheduled time? So, are you happy to come up earlier? Sorry.
People are wanting to watch the live stream at 4 o'clock, so.
Yeah.
And I was confirmed that I speak at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, if that's what the time you want to do, we can wait till then. So we'll just have to adjourn the meeting for 20 minutes. But I'll move to the chair once again that we adjourn until 4 o'clock. Seconded, Councillor Rutherford. Everyone's almost had a turn. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. That's carried. So we'll kick back off again at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, phone call somewhere.
Yeah, thanks. So for anyone that needs to find this next submission, it is on page 225 of your agenda. Welcome, Judy. Thank you for coming along today, and we'll give you, sorry, let's get it going as well. We'll give you 5 minutes to present, and then there'll be some 5 minutes of questions as well.
I'd just like to acknowledge Mayor Rob, CEO Cameron, and councillors and men and women who have come here today to hold Southern District Council to account. I'm Julie Diane, family Leith, Waikawa, Catholics. Firstly, I wish to remind councillors and staff of the Southern District Council that as trustees of the public trust, you have an obligation to abide by your fiduciary duties to serve in the best interests of the public who are the beneficiaries of the trust. I see very little evidence in recent years of the Southern District Council acting in the best interests of the people, with a noticeable lack of transparency, fairness and integrity in the way you provide services and consult with the people of Southern. Proposed rate increases over the next 10 years are expected to rise to 80%. Is this affordable to the 15,840 homeowners in Southland? It is not, according to a local government benchmark. Figures sourced from the Taxpayers Union says the total Southern District Council annual expenditure on consultants and contractors is in excess of $90 million. Is this wise and careful use of public money? At the Waihopai Toto Community Board meeting on the 25th of June this year, it was confirmed that 33 community-funded scoped projects have been approved in the 24-34 long-term plan to be delivered in the next 3 years, from 24 to 27. Does the public know about this? Did they agree to this? On whose authority were these 33 projects approved? One of the scope projects is the creation of a multi-use track between Edendale and Wyndham with a price tag of $1,232,000 with payments spread over 3 years, be funded from reserves, loans and grants. Does the council suggest that all of Southland District will fund this and the other 32 scoped projects? Or does council envisage that the homeowners in the Waihopai Toto ward alone will pick up the tab? Or does council propose to take out a massive loan to fund these projects and in the process rack up huge debt via rates for this and the next generations to contend with? I'm here today to object to the long-term plan in its entirety and any other agenda under the UN's Sustainable Goals and Agenda 2030 and beyond. The debt you have created belongs to you. Southland District Council. It is not ours. The debt to bankrupt us and put us off the land and enslave us will not fly. You're abusing the public and this has to stop. And lastly, the submission process and the consultation drop-in exercises are box ticking exercises for the council to state that you have consulted the public, when in fact the agenda will be continued regardless of what the public want, and the public will submit to your plan. I ask you this. Do you think you're doing the right thing? When you leave this place, can you say with sincerity you did the right thing for the people of Southland? That's it.
Thank you. Is it possible just to shut that door, just to drown out some of the background noise? Thank you for taking the time.
Any questions?
Yeah, and I'll open up to the floor for any questions. Go for that.
Just regarding the scope projects you're talking about, I think it was explained, but you realise that they're not approved. They're simply scope projects that may or may not happen.
It's funny thing to say that, Paul, because here in this agenda, Waihopai Community Board agenda, right, page 103. The Waihopai Community have a number of community funded projects that have been approved in the 24-34 long-term plan to be delivered in 50 years of the 24-34 long-term plan. It says here they have been approved. So
they've been approved to be scoped, but they haven't been approved to actually happen as such.
It says that they are already scoped.
Okay.
Scope, project scope confirmation, locally funded projects.
Are there any further questions?
33. I mean, I didn't add up all what they're all going to come to, but the track alone is going to come to over $1 million, and there's 32 more in here.
Are you aware of the process that we go through as a council to get things on to like the long-term plan to actually do as part of the consultation to hear back from the public? It's a clunky process, but it's kind of what we need to do as a local government, and to ensure that transparency and accountability comes through to get everything into that. It's essentially a budget, and for that scoping, are you aware of how that kind of
I don't actually believe that there is a fair consultation process. I think it's a box ticking exercise, and it will go ahead anyway.
So what do you believe would be a fairer process than what we've done?
A decent consultation process with meetings where people can come and can air their views in front of all the other people that come into the meeting, instead of a drop in the middle of the day when most hard-working folk are out working on the land. This is district council, are out there working on the land.
So do you perceive a drop-in where you get direct access to elected members as an individual rather than a public meeting where the whole room doesn't get that access? Do you deem the public meeting being more beneficial than a direct access to an elected member in a drop-in?
Meetings, I don't believe to consult them.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Boyce?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Judy. Appreciate you coming in and submitting. I take it that you're uncomfortable with the plans, the long-term debt track that's been forecast, $300 million for the Southland ratepayer. You're uncomfortable with that?
Absolutely uncomfortable. Rates are unaffordable now. What they're going to be like when they start going up over these 2 years. People are already not able to pay their loans. People are already wondering how they're going to afford to pay their loans.
So in terms of cutting back on the rates, do you have a on what services we don't deliver? You've mentioned those projects already, but is there anything?
Stick to their core business of providing core services and infrastructure in these bloody multi-use tracks and camping grounds and what have you, dog parks and all these projects.
So your definition of the core services, what would you deem the core services?
If council don't know what the core services are, I think you need to go back to the drawing board.
Well, it's a subjective phrase, so I was just seeing what your opinion.
Core services, I'll leave that up to your imagination. Bridges, roads, sewerage, water, all the things that council should be looking at instead of all these other great projects.
So noting that a lot of the debt that we've got is coming through for the Three Waters, particularly the wastewater part of that core service. Do you have any other suggestions of how we might fund that work if we don't use debt?
Stick to the core services. Get rid of all the other.
Thank you. That's time for your submission, and thank you once again for coming along and your written one as well. We appreciate you talking to us. Okay, so next up we have, so I believe our next submitter, Katie Allen, is not able to submit because she's unwell, which takes us to Alana Barrett. You're scheduled in for 20 past, but are you happy to come and speak earlier? Yep. Thank you. And this is on page 28 of our agenda.
I only put the taxpayer subsidies in.
Sorry?
I only put the taxpayer subsidies, that chart of the taxpayer subsidies. Where do I start? I've been busy with my lemming bit. I've got 230%. So I'm very happy. As long as you stay alive, I'll be even happier.
So you've just got 5 minutes to present, and then we'll 5 minutes after that for questions, so 10 minutes in total.
I'd like to say hello, John. You used to be a school teacher.
I know.
Our photos. I think it's a bit hard to sort of comprehend. Because I've been busy, I haven't really prepared anything. But I've been coming to these long-term plans since 2009. And the first long-term plan was about 80 pages. And it achieved a lot. It kept the rates at a rate where no pensioner was worse off. And what I mean by that is every year our pensioners in our community are guaranteed a certain amount of increase. But in the last long-term plan, the increases that come through on the long-term plan were in excess of all pensioners' increases for what they were actually paying for. So the pensioners 3 years ago were actually financially enabled to actually have a better quality of life than what they are now. I haven't even, to be honest, I haven't even looked at that long-term plan because all it is your forecast and, spreadsheets. And it's taken me all these years to realise what we're all sitting around the table for. And it's all these pretty spreadsheets, because basically that's all we're here for, is to pass that spreadsheet, or maybe this forecasted one, or this one here with the green total. And that's the reality of what our councillors are here for, is to pass any spreadsheet that's put in front of you. But your role and your ability is, as advocates for our community, you see these figures? You can alter them. All you got to do is motion and pass. That gets motioned and this gets motioned. But that's your ability to actually resolve a lot of these things. I actually don't envy your job, because listening to this and sitting here all day, I wouldn't make a very good councillor.
It does. But what you fellas have to put up with, and a lot of people who come here are very confused at what your role is under the legislation. And it's not fair on you fellas, it's not fair on the staff. But over the last, since 2000, there has been that much rules that have changed in both the long-term plan, all the plans that you've got to put in front of you. It's just ridiculous. You know, realistically, this long-term planning shouldn't have been nearly 800 pages. No one's going to sit there and read all of that 800 pages. It should have been motioned and passed that it be 150 pages, and that's it. You've got to use your time to limit the information. But the problem with all this long-term plan and everything else is our $2 Auditor General, because that's all he's worth is $2. Because it's the Auditor General that states, I want this information. I want a report for this and I want that. Well, I'll give the Auditor General $2 because what he passed, in the last long-term plan, when I said to you there was 25 million that had been removed for 8 years, he signed all of them. So he's worth $2 because that should have been on public records. But even with what you've got here with the long-term plans, you know, all this projected spending, all it's done is create a lot of scaremongering. But last year, part of our Ratings Act was actually changed, and that was section 1AA. And in that, this year, next year, and the year after, it's unlimited spend. The 30% limit is removed. And that is not in the long-term plan, but on the advice of our Auditor General, he sends all these things through and says, we want this and we want that. Well, he can pay for it. Because if your job is to provide core information and core services, if he wants it, then all the letters from these government departments that are requesting further information, it's your job as councillors to view them, because they would never want you to see the memorandums that the other government bodies are sending through to the staff. Until you pass any money, put those memorandums in the minutes, and let's see how happy Wellington will be then by asking for them. Put the memorandums on those in your minutes of what the staff are actually asked for by the government, central government. That's all I've got to say. But we're like that, we're getting ripped off with the submission that I put in, as you can see, back to that, as Gisborne is getting the highest subsidy for their pine trees. So over the years that you've been receiving the subsidy, our Auditor General has been signing off on $2.5 million to up to $3 million on the land area that you've got, less. So that's why I'll give the Auditor General $2, because he's shortchanging you. That's all I'd like to say.
No, thank you, Alana. I appreciate you coming in. I know you've said yourself you're a frequent flyer to our submission processes, and yeah, thank you for once again coming along. Just a question for me, did you read the 40 odd pages document that we put out?
Yeah, it doesn't matter your capital works program, that's just normal process. Your capital works program.
Are there any questions from the floor for Alana? We're getting on quietly.
Oh, well, hallelujah to you all. And I hope you have a safe trip home.
Thank you very much.
And you too.
Bye.
Thanks very much.
Yes.
Going by the noise outside the door, we may have.
We've got someone.
Yes, I have, and I think,
Yeah, no, she's probably, yeah, do you want to lead her in?
it's only for a short time, I'll put it. And she has put in, because she is on the Ohio. She's met us.
She can come over. Yeah.
I need to read about it. She's always
Okay,
No, I had paid that. It's something like this.
There's a-
Yeah, right.
This is pretty good.
Maybe it might have used it.
6 months old.
Well, I suppose. These is a-
Yes, indeed. Oh, yeah, I suppose, yeah, the warmer weather they grow in. Yeah. Oh, lovely. She's laying on the floor on the side of it. That's a scary thing.
It's 4 months, 6 months. That's one. It's actually. Have time.
Are we still live?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's still close.
Yeah, on the way, haven't we?
So of the thing.
Yes. High energy. Well, I thought. It's just so she could like somewhere. Pretty young to be doing that, isn't it? But you was okay. Right.
So the Federated Farmers submission is on page 90 of your agenda. And we've got some content as well, I believe. Welcome, Jason. Welcome, David, and welcome. Sorry, I can't see your name online.
Eleanor.
Eleanor, welcome along. So we'll give you 5 minutes to speak, and then after that, it'll be 5 minutes for questions from the team. But if you need to go over into that question time, you're welcome to as well. So welcome along, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. First, apologies from a few of our executive members. Would love to have made it today, but it's just a convenient timing of being in the school holidays. So most of them are out and about, enjoying their time. I'll start off by saying Southland Federated Farmers would like to thank the council for the opportunity to speak to our submission on the draft long-term plan. Southland Feds is represented today by myself and members of our executive, David Rose, and policy team member, Eleanor Linscott, online. With the hearing coinciding with the school holidays, it has meant that some executive members could not attend and who would have liked to. We would like to emphasise that our submission represents 985 farmer ratepayers members across the district, and that includes all farm systems, sheep, beef, dairy, arable, high country, etc. Don't look at this as a one submission, but many farming voices. The farming sector is the core to thriving rural communities. Wider primary sector businesses rely on farming, e.g. vets, rural supplies, etc. The primary sector is also key to the local economy and export-related earnings. The long-term plan needs to reflect the needs of the rural community who represent the majority of ratepayers for the district. Our submission raised concerns about the proposed projects and spending the LTP that we would like to cover today. And now I'm going to hand over to my left-hand man, or right-hand man, David Rose, to talk to certain points.
Yeah, well, I guess one of our main things is around the rating issue. It's halfway rates full. And, you know, we'd like to partner with you to try and get more of the far rate down. When I was local government spokesman, she spoke to local government New Zealand on that. Because, you know, the money collected from roads should go back to roads. Southland, the second largest network, it needs to happen. And that's where the heavy traffic use, that's where that's allocated for. So the money is collected through the road user charges. So then we get to the system that you've got with Infometrics, and we did listen to it online. And just like forestry yesterday, we have some great concerns around the holes in the system. There's certain parts of it are on tonnages and they're dated. Other parts of it are just made up because you've got no data. I mean, this very system, when it was brought in, one of the key points was over time, you'll get more data. And so there'll be data for everyone and it'll be fair. Well, it's not fair and it's full of holes and it needs looked at. So just like forestry yesterday, we have grave concerns. An example is, you know, all the grain produced in the region is used as stock feed. Well, you know, our past provincial president was a large arable farmer. He had contracts and it went out of the province all over the place. So that's not the case. So there's a whole lot of assumptions in there that are wrong. So it needs revisited. We would like this modelling to be fair and accurate, and at the moment it isn't. So we pay a lot of road rates, and we do want good roading in bridges, but we're not going to tell you which ones you can use. You're the experts, so you're going to have to prioritise. And I'd have to say we're in the middle of something that's really tough at the moment. So a good outcome on a sheep farm right now is making nothing. I'll just put that past you again. A good outcome on a sheep farm is making nothing. Many people are borrowing 100, even 200,000 just to farm for another year. So things are really tight, and it's a, you know, when I went to school, it was about needs and wants. So, you know, you look at some of the, so you need to go back to your core business, and you need to look at the other stuff and put it on hold. you know, the likes of, in the next 2 years, you've got $10.5 million budgeted for a new building. That's not the time for that. And as well as that, and I guess you all know, local government needs some sort of reorganisation. And it could be a building, you might build the building and then find it's not used. But so we need to look at reorganising government, cutting the bureaucracy and the red tape. Stormwater and wastewater, just things that are down, rural ratepayers are down to pay a quarter for wastewater, I think 18% for wastewater, 25% for stormwater. So I guess what we're saying is we pay for our own and we don't think that's fair. The Te Anau airport is another thing. Tourism's a very successful industry and we believe it should stand on its own 2 feet, not be spread out on costs. So I guess there's plenty of other examples in there where we think you can reprioritise, just like we're having to do in our businesses.
Yeah, it's all about having our priorities focused on the must-have and the like-to-haves. When we, you know, David brought up the fact on the new building. You know, we could waste $2 million of that on planners and consultants before our hand was put to nail. I know how the process works. I've sat on many school boards in the district. So, you know, there's too much wasted spending going on within our organisations, and we need to get more of a handle on that rather than just throwing rates up all the time. Let's get a little bit more efficient with our handling.
And I also see things like the Matariki statues that have just gone up, and I haven't seen one, but they tell me they're worth $900K and you paid for half of it. So, you know, it's nice to have art, but I'm dodging potholes on the way here and think that's it's more important. So, so I guess with that, we'll throw it open to questions.
Yeah, thanks to both of you. It's the question for me, and I've written it down somewhere on a bit of paper and I've lost it. But the rating model that you talk about and the flaws that you point out, do you have, and you might not be able to answer this, but do you have any sort of proposed changes that you think we need to do? Like, do you support the model fundamentally and you're saying the data needs to be looked at, or are you saying that the fundamental model isn't right?
I think the fundamental model isn't right. We definitely support doing something about roading. We all know roading needs fixed. And even last time we were prepared to put extra under. But at the moment, we've been told you've got a system and the system is full of holes. So it's got different rules for different people, and some are on state highways, so don't worry about them, but many of our members are on state highways. So it just becomes a bit of a nonsense thing. So you either have a system that's fair and equitable, or you don't have one. That's where I guess we're coming from, Jason.
In the past, you know, we've all gone on hearsay, like we haven't been able to track vehicles wherever they are. We've got e-roads these days, can be very well tracked, and therefore user pays. You know, where the e-roads are collected is where they come back to. And that's what we at Feds can help the district council really the government for, right? Seriously. So we can lobby to get the money back in the south and where it needs to come back to, because at the moment it's going north. It's going into the motorways and roading networks up north. It's not coming back to us where the money's been generated from. So
yeah, and I think that's a great idea, and you and I have already talked about combining together, and I think that needs to happen. But again, just my question again around that roading model. Do you have a proposed different way of, because it's it's a complicated system for us to try and distribute that charging fairly, and we're obviously trying to do our best with a blunt instrument, but do you have an alternative approach that you're suggesting that we use?
We can look at what some of the other districts are doing, but I guess in the submission, one of the points that we did raise was perhaps some more granular detail on the different farming systems and how it actually operates in reality, because I guess a lot of our concerns with the model that was proposed was the reliance on assumptions, and we could see that there were flaws in there that were concerning. So it was just, I guess, you know, having more of that granular detail of accuracy, as David and Jason have pointed out.
Yeah, so that was my question in terms of if we get the data improved, would you be comfortable with the model as it is, if I were to question that way?
Well, I guess we'd like to be involved in looking through that and saying, yeah, this is complete. And some of the assumptions, like I think there was one around mining and you realised that, it closed, so you cut it back, but then there's still a lot of stuff going in mining that was even bigger than what you had, but that's just the way it was. How can that make any sense? You know?
We're running.
It doesn't make any sense to me. Anybody listening that didn't know anything would go, I don't know. It just seems like riddles. And at the end of the day, if Infometrics cannot add any value, then surely they're clipping the ticket. So, you know, all these consultants, I looked at one of your, I think it was a cycle track or a walkway into Wyndham, and you had four different options on how to, four different options on how to come in. You'd obviously spend a huge amount of money with a consultant on that. Some of these things, you used to have resident people that would come up with it, and huge money spent on consultants. We can see that the Three Waters thing in today's paper, $60 million spent on consultants for nothing. So, you know, let's lift the bonnet and have a look, a real look, needs and wants. You know, you can do it. You can find it. Yeah.
Cool, well, that was the time. So yeah, thank you once again for coming along. Really appreciate the thorough to put through, and you'll certainly be taking it into account as we go to our next stages. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
And that concludes our submission hearing. So once again, I'd like to acknowledge everyone that's taken the time to come and speak to us and to write in, and the team, both councillors and staff, for all the work that's gone into this process. So I will now close the meeting with the closing vote here. Kia ora, te moreno, kia whakapapa, tō nāmu, te moana, hei hurahi, mā tātou i te rangi nei, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou i a tātou katoa, hui tai. May the peace be widespread, may the sea be like greenstone, a pathway for us all this day. Let us show respect for each other, for one another, bind us all together. And I think we all did a very good job of all of that over the last couple of days, so thank you.